Hey y'all, Otis here. Hitting the point in the wipe where I need to start thinking about building tens of thousands of non-ruble currency, euros for solar power, and for the mentor quest coming up, the dollars for the air filtering unit. And I wanted to share some tips and tricks that I have learned the hard way through overpaying for both of these last wipe and trying to build some up this wipe. Now, you're probably already familiar with using these from Peacekeeper selling everything in dollars, and maybe you've had to buy a scope or something that used euros. And you know that at least for USD, Peacekeeper will gladly buy a lot of equipment from you and just give you USD directly. So dig through your insurance returns and deep down your stash, find the items you're not using anymore that are just taking up space, sell them to Peacekeeper, see if that gets you where you need to go. If it doesn't, everything I'm about to say, I'm gonna speak in euros, but it also applies to USD. You can use all of it to raise a bunch of cash in the same way. Definitely for euros and maybe for USD, one of the most straightforward game mechanics for the exchange is to just directly pay for it. Skier will give you €1 for 145 rubles. And if you're just trying to get that piece of kit so that you can get in with your squad and keep running more raids, by all means, this is very time efficient, but you are paying a convenience fee for it. And if you need to raise 75,000 euros, paying for them with rubles is super inefficient. Now I'll show you what I mean by that by using meds as an example. So meds are great because they sell for about 10 grand. It's a nice round number for the math. So if we were going to sell the meds for 10,000 rubles, we're going to pay about 2,000 in flea fees. So we'll make 28,000 rubles from this. If you're going to sell the meds for 28,000 rubles and then come to Skier and try to use the proceeds to convert it into euros, you're going to get 193 euros is what you're going to be able to buy for that. That works out to about 64 and change euros per pile of meds. If we flip that around and we go back into the auction house and we list these instead directly for euros by changing the currency in that drop down there, you'll see that 64 euros isn't actually that much money. Now, why is that? It's because the exchange rate for the auction house is considerably different. It's 126. It's more of a 10 to 15% difference depending on whether you're using euros or USD. This means that if we actually want to get the most value possible out of meds, we do it by listing directly in euros. So instead of 64 per unit, we could list these for 79, and there we're going to pay basically the same flea fee. The flea market thinks that we're listing these for just under 10,000 rubles. And in terms of our relative positioning here in the price sorted listing in the flea, we're going to have the same position. It's going to look like the same value. It'll sell quite quickly as well. And so you're making an extra €15 per med over 3 batches. It's like a free extra sale. So this is significantly more efficient than just cranking out a bunch of items and selling them directly for rubles and then converting the rubles after the fact. This is great, and you can absolutely just list them for the lowest price possible to get quick sales and crank out meds, crank out shampoos. These things are easy crafts on the hideout. The reagents are cheap. One thing that I did last wipe was to always sell my workbench outputs for rubles and use that to fund the lavatory and med station outputs. But there's a lot of ways to do it and a lot of different items that you could choose to go with, and they're all good choices. Do whatever works for you. For me, there's one other aspect to this that I do think is useful to consider depending on what you're selling. So for shampoos, which we'll take a look at, there is a lot more price variability. These things today have gone from 14 to 18 to back down to that now 16, give or take, and that's great. So let's figure out what is close to 16 here. 144 is too high. 133 is going to put us off the bottom of the page. 128. 16.1. Great. So if we list now, we're going to list in the top 3. The trick with euros is to put yourself in the perspective of the buyer. So if the buyer is not also trying to save up this weird secondary pool of money, to them, it's almost free to buy things in euros. And as a result, euros get like a little bit of an advantage. They're not, as long as there are no other euro listings, or as long as you're the cheapest euro listing available, you can actually crank the price up just a little bit and make a little bit more money out of it, because no player is doing the multiplication in their head. They're just kind of looking to see, is it in, is it on the front page where they can see it? If they spot it and it's, in the middle of the page, or at least in the upper half of the page, it's a very easy impulse purchase because they don't need to think about it, and it's virtually free. That puts us 17, so that's too low. You could absolutely just do some grade school math to figure these out. I find it's a lot easier, and I don't have to think as hard to iteratively try a couple of prices and see which one fits. We can list all these for 130 euro. The listing will put it right there. And even if we get beat out on price a little bit, as long as it's visible, as long as it's anywhere here on the front page, players are going to see that this is from the alternate free pool of money, and these units are going to move relatively quickly. We'll do the same thing here with our 10,000 euro pile of meds. 10,450. It's a little light. We can probably get to 85. Call it a day. And there we are. So you can do this with the craftable items. I think it works very well with the high throughput, high turnover sorts of crafts that then get fed into other players' crafts and barters. But don't let me stop you from applying it to random gun gear and whatever else you pull out of raids. The pricing stuff is the same. It's just you're more subject to things getting stuck in the flea market and not moving and building up. The other risk that you're going to have is if you're listing something for euros and it is a little too far down the page, you might invite other players to undercut you in euros. If that happens, obviously you can just remove, but mostly I wait and I just ride it out. There are only a couple of items in this game that by convention, and I don't understand how it started, typically sell in euros. You see grenade cases listed for them all the time. You also see condensed milk. Typically there's something around condensed milk that's listed, but generally if things are going to get listed in euros, they're listed for like wacky, ridiculous numbers that are off the bottom here. And it's because they're preying on people that are going to select the only show me these offers in euros filter. That brings me to my final tip for building up these large stacks of money pretty quick, especially if you're the sort to be crafting pretty frequently and building up your reagents in the craft. You might be tempted to hit right click, filter by item, and just buy whatever is the cheapest. And you're going to see players doing the same thing that you're trying to do, where the cheapest thing is in euros. In order to avoid this, while I am fundraising, I will fix my currency to only be in rubles, set it to remember the selected filter, and hit OK. This way, I can just go about my usual thoughtless filter, purchase, craft set of steps. And I don't have to worry that I'm nickel and diming myself in the currency that I'm trying to build up. I don't just leave that on all the time, because you can only set it to a single currency. You can't set it to filter one out, which means that things that typically sell in dollars start to look weirdly expensive until you remember to click that off and look for the Peacekeeper trade. This is super annoying to me. This wipe, I have run an enormous amount of gear. More than half my raids, I'm running something that is primarily Peacekeeper. So 762 NATO, 9mm parabellum, 45. I'm using a lot more Peacekeeper kit this wipe, so I find it really annoying to have to deal with the filter until I accidentally buy something in euros, and then I get so mad I turn it back on again. So save yourself from the nickel and dime, keep the filter on, and then when you get built up to the amount of funding that you're after, go ahead and open the filters, turn it back off, and set it to remember so that you can start seeing all of the other trades again. So hopefully this helps you get your hideout set up faster, and in the process might save you a couple million rubles that you can spend getting a few more of those military power filters and M tubes. Until next time, I'll catch you in raid.